Hey there, dirt bike people. I'm Chuck from TrueTech, and today I'm going to be disassembling the right side of the engine on this 2006 YZ250. So we're starting with the top end already off. If you need to know about top end disassembly, you can check out my video here for detailed instructions on that. Right off the bat, we're going to remove the water pump cover. It's just these 4 bolts, and then we're going to go to the outer clutch cover. Next, we're going to remove the inner clutch cover, the whole assembly. Don't take out the oil check bolt. The threads are really shallow and it's very easy to strip them. Removing the oil filler is a safety precaution. I don't put it back in until I fill the bike with oil. Once the rest of these bolts are removed, we can pull off the inner clutch cover. I don't own a clutch holding tool. The electric impact is much faster and easier. We'll zip out these 6 bolts and then pull the pressure plate off. On clutches with a lot of wear, you'll see a depression right here where it's been contacting the plates. Now we can pull out the hat and bend the lock tabs down with a screwdriver and a hammer. In this case again, I don't use a clutch holder tool. I simply leave the plates in, and that provides plenty of friction, and I can just zip this nut off with the impact. Now we can pull the whole plate stack out and look all the way through them. The manual is going to give you a thickness measurement, and that number is useless. As friction plates wear, they get hard. I try and dig out little chunks with my fingernail. If they're like a chalkboard, they're done. As steel plates wear, they get warped. A sign of them being warped is that they're starting to turn blue. These ones here are in nice shape. Next comes the inner hub, the washer, and then the basket. On the basket you want to check for grooving right here. It's also important to check for any play between the gear and the basket. If there's any play, that means that these clutch dampers behind this plate are wore out and they need to be replaced. Next we can pull out this clutch bearing assembly. This washer down here is often stuck down pretty well. I'm using 2 magnets to get it off. Next we can pull out the shift shaft, and don't forget the little washer. To remove the kick idler gear, you're going to need a set of snap ring pliers. There's a little snap ring on here, and then a washer. I like to hold these assemblies together with a zip tie. For the kick axle assembly, you'll need to pull this spring out of the hole. Careful, it's preloaded. And then you can pull the assembly out, and there's a washer on the backside. I put a zip tie on stuff like this too. Now this primary bolt takes a little bit of oomph to remove. I simply hold the crank like this and hit it with my air impact. If you don't have an impact that'll do it, you need to reinstall the outer clutch basket and use a piece of aluminum or copper, a penny will work, wedge it between the gears, and then use a breaker bar to get this bolt out. It's tight. Oh, and this is a standard thread bolt, none of this left-hand stuff. Now's as good a time as any to pull out the clutch push rod. On YZs with really high hours, this end will be all mushroomed and it'll need to be replaced. Next we can pull out the 2 bolts that hold this shift detent assembly. You want to pull out this little collar and set it aside so you don't lose it. Now if this little mechanism comes apart, it's quite a pain to put it back together, so I try to take it out as an assembly, put a zip tie around it, put it in a bag, and don't touch it. It's not complicated to put back together, it's just annoying. Underneath each one of these little paddles there's a spring and a little cap, and it takes about 14 fingers to get it back together. Next we'll remove the bolt that holds the star wheel onto the shift drum. I like to do this one by hand because all the resistance ends up pushing on the shift forks and I don't want to damage them. I use a small screwdriver to pull this little arm out of place, and then I can pull the star wheel off. Now I remove these 2 little seal retainers. And that about does it for the right hand disassembly on this 2006 YZ250. The rest of the walkthroughs on this specific engine are in the playlist, and if you want more of this type of content, go ahead and subscribe.